Alright guys, welcome back to the third video in this series, and in this very video we're going to start working on our project as our real project, which is the Stack Overflow clone. Something like Stack Overflow where users can create questions and other users can provide answers to their questions and things like that. Alright, so this is our test model that we used. You can get rid of this, or we can just leave it. Doesn't make any difference. So this time we're going to start defining our actual model which we're going to use in this project, and we're going to create a model called questions. Fields that we need in this, we can require the title and description, and lastly we have posted by or created by, whichever you choose by. Let's just created by, and this is going to be a foreign key to our user model, so we have to import the Django. Alright, that will give us our user model. Then we want to make a foreign key relationship models dot. I think that's for the user model, that's for the question model, and I think there should be timestamp, something like that. Okay, so time, right, the time feed, that's that. So we can define our string representation. Alright, this will be our first question model, so users can actually log in and ask questions by providing the question title, descriptions, and this will be we need to also define a model that way for other users to provide answers, so we can call that answers. So first we need to get the question, which is going to be a foreign key to our question model. Also want to have a related name. Alright, so that we can just simply say question.answers, give us the answers of a particular question. Alright, then who is providing the answer? We're going to say posted by, who is providing the answer, which is going to be a test feed, alright. So that's that. If there's any other feed, we'll provide that later on. So let's just create this string representation. Alright, so posted by dot username answers, this will give us the string representation for this. In that we can make our migration. So let's same pattern. Oh, forgot our comma here, so that's why you're getting syntax error. Yeah, forgot our comma here, that's why. Over to the right. Okay, can migrate, run back on our server back. Okay, we have our basic model. Let's register this model that we just created in our admin file, admin.py model. So we can just import them. We just need to go back to our schema and start defining how we want to actually describe this data with Graphql. Sorry, not the schema. How I want to represent the data that will come in from those database. So first we should be able to display all questions, then question details, then ability for users to provide answers, and also ability for users to create questions. So having that in mind, we can decide to, let's comment this out, so we don't really need this. So we can create our actual questions object or question type. This is going to also get from the Django object type, because we are actually kind of serializing the Django model, and that's we're going to model, so we have to import our question model. So from here we we can import a question model. All right, and then let's work with that for now. So we have a question model. We can also specify the field. If we want to, we can specify fields and stuff, and don't forget your comma. All right, this is actually the field that we're actually trying to serialize. Okay, that'll give us that. So first, we just want to get the questions. All questions, you can just specify the all questions instead of all, change it to all questions. Right, so it's also list. Then we are changing the object type this time to question object. All right, the question type so this will give us all questions, and also similarly all, we can change this to all single question single question, same thing. We're getting the single question by the ID field, which is going to be an int field, an integer field. We need to also modify the reservoirs function. There's no more changes here. We can change this to question. That's that, and change the models then to question model. And then this, we are actually getting the ID. We can convert this also. The ID is here. The model, we can change the model to a question model, checking if it does not exist. Okay, that's in that we can not too far from what we did before. So this time, what we're going to add to this is we are going to start create our first mutation for users to be able to create questions. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. For us to create our mutation, we create our class, which we're going to call create from graphing.mutation. It's going to be the mutation object that I want to use to create. Then this time, what do we want to create? We want to create a question instance, which is going to be graphing.feed, because the object this time is going to be the feed. Then what is the object type? It's going to be the same question type. All right, so you're using this object as a feed because we want the all question parameters to return as one object. All right, so it's going to be a type. So that's that. Then we need to define the argument. Class arguments. Object is expecting the title, and then this the type of the title, which we're going to say graphing.string. It's going to be a string type, and it is required, so we have to pass in our required parameter. Also the description of the optional, because you can provide a question without a description, so that is also going to be a string feed, or you can leave it not to be required. All right, so these are the two major arguments that is going to be coming from this object. The timestamp is going to be created automatically. Then the user, we're going to get the user from the context, and then we will handle that when we are creating our mutate function, just like the way we have resolver function that actually handles the logic that returns the exact result that we want. Mutation also has its own special function, which is known as mutate, which is known as the mutate function, and this is the function that actually handles the process of creating a new object. So we're going to define that function. Now we're going to call it mutate. That's the mutate function, and this function is going to take in self, also going to take in info, and this time it's going to take in the arguments that we want to create, the argument which is the title and the description. Alright, and remember that we are expecting a user, which is the created underscore by, is going to be the logged in user, though we've not implemented authentication. That will be the next video. Alright, so let's try and get a user, and then we say the user, we are getting the user from the context by say user info.cont.user. Alright, then we need to check and see if the user dot is underscore anonymous. It's anonymous, that means the user is not logged in. We want to return an exception because we want to catch this error. We don't want our code to break, and this exception. Alright, this is the message we're going to get if the user is not logged in. Otherwise, we want to create a question object, which we're going to call a question model. Here we're going to pass in the parameters. Here it's expecting the title, which is going to be coming from the user. That's if we have one. Alright, I think this will actually create an object for us. The timestamp is going to be created on its own. Then if we have this instance created and want to save the instance, we can see question, which is this question variable. So question.save, our normal save method coming from Django. We're going to save this instance to the database. Alright, so that's going to save this. Now when we save this, we want to return something to the screen to show that actually a question instance we created. So we're going to return the create question object, where we're going to pass in the question equal to the question that was created. Remember, this create question object here is expecting a question object. So the question object is the instance of a question that was just created. It will be returned back to the screen. Alright, so that when we're actually implementing it in React, once we create, we can display the question that was created immediately in the screen. So because it's returning back for us the question that was created. Okay, I think that's all for the mutation. Then we have to bring this mutation into our own project schema file. Or before we actually come here, we have to define our special class here, just like the way we define the special query set and query class. You can also define that here too. So after our mutation object, we have to define the class called mutation. Alright, this is also going to take in graphing that object, and this we are going to get and create our, by calling our create underscore. Remember the rules to be underscore. This is going to be our create question object that we created. Alright, so dot feed. So this is going to be our create question that we're going to call from our front end or from our testing tools. We're going to refer to this in our mutation. And the create question is the create question and mutation that we define. It's our own custom create questions that we define with the feed. But this is the root mutation that takes in. So any other mutation that we are going to create, by the time we define the mutation for delete and update, and maybe any other actions like our create action, we are also going to be bringing them here. So we're going to list whichever this mutation object that we create, we're going to define them here also. Alright, so that's that. So we can save this and move over to our project based schema. Here we're also going to define the mutation class. Alright, so this is going to take in a question API, the schema. I want to access the mutation that we create there. Alright, then we also want to pass in the graphing dot object type also. For now we're also going to pass. Then lastly, in our schema here, we want to put in call the mutation, and here we're going to pass in our mutation that we just create. Alright, so that's for that, and then we can save this now. Note, for now we are using a default Django authentication system. Alright, so later when we are handling authentication, we'll set up JSON web token. So that's why we are able to get this context.user. It's kind of similar to our request.user when we get the user from the section. Alright, so that's what this object is going to return. So it's going to return the user object for us. That's the logged in user object. Server Okay, our server is ready. Just refresh. This time this is not the query we are going to be sending. Let's comment this out. If we try and query for, let's try a query. I think we are having a little error. Let's double check somewhere where we specify. Here we have an error, sorry. You have to be question not W, not capital letter U. So that's the do here. And let's test our code. You can see it's giving us hints or questions. Alright, and we can decide to say we want to get the ID, or let's say we want to get the title of all questions, and then let's say apart from the title, the description. Let's see what will return for us. It will return an empty list or none. That should be the case. Let's try that. We are getting none. That is actually true because we don't really have any question data yet. And let's try and create. Let's try a mutation this time. Oh, sorry. The mutation we want to create this time is our create. You can see it's giving us hints. You create question mutation, and this is going to take him some parameter. You can see it's giving us hints, the parameters that is expected. So title, so we can specify a title, and then we can also specify the description. And alright, so let's actually test this, and if we do this, what should it return back to us? Let's say it should return the ID, or it should return the question, because that is what we ask him to return. You can return the question, but this question has feeds, so we want to get the title, and we also want to get, let's say, okay, let's test it with this. Alright, it actually created it. That's fine, it's working because okay, because we actually logged in with the admin user. Alright, now we're able to create a data. If we check our model, if we refresh, you can see we already have the data we just created, which is what is Django. That was the question we created. So let's try and get our question again. Let's double check one more time, and alright, we have all questions correct, single questions, and we have the reservoir for reservoir underscore all questions. Okay, that's that. So let's try and get a question again once we refresh. Alright, we can get the question. You can see we're getting the title, and we can get this. Now we want to get the user, be able to get the user. Why? Because we don't have a user type object defined, though we have it in our feed. Remember, the user is a separate object on its own. It's a separate model object on its own, which is having a relationship with the question object. So it won't work because we have not defined a user type. We only defined a question type. So if we're going to test it now, let's put in the created by, I think we call it created by object. So if we try like this, and you see it's highlighting it in red, it says it cannot query field created by or type question type, because this created by is supposed to be a separate type, which is the user type, so it's not part of the question type, so you can't query it on the question type. So if we run it, you will see we have cannot query field created by on type object. So that's what we'll be doing in our next video. When we'll be working on authentication, we'll be creating our user type so that you can register new user, can log in user, and also we can query for questions by particular users and all that. So that's what we'll be doing in our next video. Alright, this video is already getting too long, and then we could create video. We have done our first mutation. We can create video. We can also, let's demo and create one more. We can alright, so explain why you use Django. Alright, so I'll just create another question to try. This time if we run our server, you can see our second question is created. So if we go back to our model, you can see we are having the second question, which is Django the best framework, and what is Django? 2 questions already. So if we comment this out and let's try and get questions again without the created by, because we've not defined the user object. So if we run this, you can see we are getting a list of all the questions from our database. Alright, this is working fine. So in our next video we'll work on authentication. In 2 more videos we'll be done with our API, so that we can move over to React and Apollo Client and start building our front end. So in the next video we'll work on the authentication. In the other videos we'll work on able to delete questions and able to update your questions, and other users can provide answers to questions. Alright, see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. See you guys.